or Honor Guess is one of DC's more recent attempts to see what characters stick, among the lines of Damage, Sideways, and Naomi. And she proved to be okayly popular, but then just went away. She first appeared in her own solo series in 2018, which would last 18 issues, which is a pretty big deal. Honor Guess is a former leviathan assassin. She was kidnapped at a young age by a league of assassins and was trained from a young age to be an assassin and a killer. Talia Al Ghul, while Honor Guess was only a teenager, would handpick her to be her new bodyguard. Silencer would end up cutting a deal with Talia. She would kill an enemy of hers if she lets her walk from Leviathan, and Talia agreed. 5 years later, after Honor Guess had killed the enemy that Talia wanted, Honor is now married and has her own son. Although I'm a little bit confused because the son appears to be like 10, but he should only be like 4 or 3. But anyways, after assassins start coming after her family, she decides to don the title the Silencer to protect her family, which is what her series is all about. Pretty standard story. But after her comic ended in 2019, she'd be drawn as being really just a cameo character, either in Nightwing comics or Wonder Woman comics. Well, those two, and mostly that she cameoed a couple other series, but those two were where she cameoed the most, where she literally did nothing but stand in the background. So it actually ended up getting adapted into the Arrowverse. That in season 7 of Arrow, as when the Longbow Hunters were Redundard and Kodiak, although Redundard was just called Red and Kodiak was called Bear, but the IMBD things and also a lot of other things refer to those characters Red Dart and Kodiak, so I'm going to just refer to them as Red Dart and Kodiak. She would have a pretty big presence in the 7th season, kinda. For the most part, she did appear the most of all of the Longbow Hunters, but she didn't really do much. She was involved in a plot where Felicity was considering torturing her for information. Although I will give credit where credit is due, and I think the actress plays her did a pretty good role in what she was given, even if there wasn't much, which at the end of the day makes sense because Silencer here is very unlike her comic book counterpart. Here she's a straight up villain, an anti-hero, without a doubt is a villain. Which makes sense since, her first appearance in comics came out in the same year her first appearance in the Arrowverse also happened. So I'm going to go on a limb here and say that the showrunners probably didn't know what Silencer would become in the comics, so they practically reinvented the character. And on the show, she was presented in a more of a Black Canary type villain. Silencer, in my opinion, is a fine character. Her series had its ups and downs, but I think its biggest problem is the fact that Silencer doesn't stand on her own 2 feet. Instead, there's constant guest stars like Deathstroke or Talia Al Ghul, which, yes, you could imply that, yes, Deathstroke and Talia Al Ghul are a part of her series because they play a part in her character, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like they're really just trying to appear as much as they can, or the writers are trying to have them appear as much as they can in order to hype up the series. But at the end of the day, I felt like they kind of, in a weird way, eclipsed her, despite the fact that they didn't even appear in all the issues. Deathstroke, in fact, only appeared 5 times in the 18-issue series. Instead, I think she could work a lot better as a supporting character in other heroes' comics, like either Green Arrow or Nightwing, or maybe even Deathstroke's comics, as she doesn't really come across like someone who can hold her own series. Even if I would say that the comic is good, but she just doesn't feel like someone can hold her own book. Similar to how Katana, Mr. Terrific, and that random vampire guy who were given their own solo books in New 52. There's a reason why Katana and Mr. Terrific solo series got cancelled. Even though both characters, in my opinion, are very strong and are very good supporting characters and are great on teams, they aren't big enough to have their own solo series. Because I love Katana and Mr. Terrific, without a doubt. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think either of them can hold their own series. And that's the same thing for Silencer. She can't hold her own series. She doesn't have enough lore. She doesn't have enough, really, anything. Instead, she kind of steps on the toes of Deathstroke's lore and Talia Al Ghul and Batman lore. Which is fine, because a lot of comic books, borrow from each other. But Silencer feels like you're kind of just, telling a story without the main characters. It'd be like telling a Superman story through the eyes of Lois Lane. which is interesting when you think about it. I think that could work actually. When now that I'm saying it out loud, but it doesn't feel right when Silencer is the one doing it because we never met Silencer until this series occurred, so it doesn't really feel like, for example, I know Lois Lane had her own comic, which was all out insane, but Honor Guest, in my opinion, just doesn't feel like she could have her own series. Maybe if she had more development and then later on got her own series, but giving her own series just right away just doesn't work. Or maybe it's just my opinion, but that's how it really felt. It felt very jarring how she was introduced in her own series. A lot of characters recently, I would say, have a similar thing. For example, I wasn't a big fan of Damage, even though he was pretty popular for a time, but also, like, Honor Guest disappeared. Although I really like Sideways, but his series got canceled because of pirating, which is unfortunate because I really like the Sideways comic. Anyways, that's it for this video. What do you think of Silencer? Do you like her or no? Do you not like her? Personally, I think she has potential in the DC universe, and I would love to see her again, but maybe not in her own comic. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.